Hi everybody, it's Librarian Faith from the Mandel Public Library of West Palm Beach. And today, I'm going to show you how to make acrylic pour paintings. Let's get started, shall we? You'll need a couple of things in order to do this project. Firstly, you'll need some acrylic paint and a pouring medium. Now I'm using Flow Acrylic. This is a special type of acrylic that is better for these pouring type of projects. It has a more liquidy consistency, but you'll want to also mix in some of the pouring medium. This makes the paint flow much better. It won't drip down in globs, it'll just nicely flow across the canvas, which is what we want. You'll also need a canvas. I'm using a plain 8x10 inch canvas. You can go bigger, but you'll want to use more paint the bigger the canvas is. You'll need some empty disposable cups. You can use reusable cups, it just takes a lot longer to clean out at the end, and I find disposable just is much easier to work with. Something to stir together your paint and the pouring medium. Little props to hold up your canvas once you start pouring the paint on top of it. You might recognize these from the wall planter episode. They're the little cement planters I made. And lastly, you'll want a bucket to catch any runoff paint. We're going to be dumping a lot of paint onto this canvas, so you'll want something that'll catch it to make cleanup much easier. I almost forgot. You'll also need a paintbrush in order to do this project. The first thing you'll want to do is mix your paints together. I'm going to be using white, blue, and gold. You'll want it to be just about half flow paint and half pouring medium. I found this gives me the best consistency whenever I start pouring. One thing for all those fellow penny pinchers out there, this craft does waste quite a bit of paint. It's a little bit painful, at least for me at first, but the product just turns out so pretty that it's absolutely worth it. Okay, then we'll take our spoons and start stirring the pouring medium in. So now you can pick it up with your spoon and see how it pours. That's the kind of consistency we want. One thing I found to be helpful is to take a paintbrush and get a bunch of that pouring white acrylic and go ahead and coat your canvas in it. It'll make the acrylic pour a little bit better over it. Don't be afraid to put a bunch of paint on the canvas at this point. Want to make sure it's good and covered. There we go. Be sure to rinse this paintbrush out. Now that we have the canvas covered, we can go ahead and set it up in our paint catching bucket. This is the one I'm using. You can see it's pretty disgusting looking, but that's a-okay because we're about to dump paint all over it. Now I'm going to line up my two lips on opposite corners of the canvas. Ideally I would have 4, but I have 2 left over, so that's what I'm using. Then I'm going to carefully place my canvas on top of them. There we go. You don't want it touching any of the edges. Now that we have that on there, we're going to go to the next step, which is filling up our pouring cup. Now, you want to just do a little bit of paint at a time into this newly empty cup. Because the different layers of paint is what's going to cause all the pretty variations in the paint when we start pouring it. Just want to make sure you do at least, 10 different color levels, switching in and out between them. Doesn't have to be any sort of consistent pattern because once we pour it on the canvas, it's going to go in any direction anyways. But it just adds that little bit extra color diversity, which makes acrylic pour painting so pretty. Okay, we'll say that looks good. Get a nice variety of paint colors in there. So I'm gonna line this back up. And here comes the fun part. We're just going to start pouring in a circular pattern diagonally across the canvas. Now I'm going to start about here, a little bit farther up than the exact corner of the canvas, and kind of loop back around just to make sure I get everything colored. Slowly pour it. As it goes, just start going in a circle back and forth, from corner to corner. Do a little bit more on this side, just to help balance it out a little bit. Okie dokie. Now we have that out. And we're going to start slowly shifting the paint all over the canvas. And now we're going to let it dry overnight. And here's our final project. I think it turned out looking quite nice. Now for anybody curious, I went ahead and tried to do another acrylic pour without doing the base of the flow acrylic on the canvas ahead of time. And this was the result. It still turned out looking very good, but I definitely noticed it was much more difficult to get the acrylic to flow over it nicely. So it does make a difference. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to tune in next week for another one. And until then, happy reading!